You've been taught your whole life to hold on. Hold on to your goals. Hold on to your image. Hold on to your relationships, your job, your beliefs, your control. Gripping so tightly, knuckles white, jaw clenched, as if life is some wild animal that must be tamed. As if chaos will win the second you loosen your grip. And for a while, maybe that worked. You felt safe, structured. You had your plans, your 5-year forecasts, your boundaries. But deep down, behind the tension, was something missing.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Quiet exhaustion, a weariness in the soul, because somewhere along the line, no one told you this. The more you let go, the more life gives you. That's the paradox Alan Watts unwraps so beautifully. Not with commands, not with pressure, but with the soft, disarming truth that sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you'll ever do. Not giving up, not quitting, but surrendering, allowing. He says it's like trying to hold water. The tighter your grip, the more slips through your fingers. But relax your hand, let it flow in suddenly, the water stays. It pulls gently in your palm. You're no longer fighting nature. You're working with it. Because nature never fights. Look around. Trees don't force themselves to grow faster. Rivers don't argue with rocks. The clouds don't ask permission to drift. All of it, the wind, the seasons, the stars, moves in rhythm, in harmony, without strain. And Watts tells us, you are no different. You are not a machine that must be managed and optimized into perfection. You are not a problem to solve. You are not behind or broken or late. You are life expressing itself, uniquely, moment to moment. But the trouble starts when you forget that. When you believe you're separate from it all. That it's you against life. You against time. You against loss, uncertainty, the unknown. So you hold on tighter. To your expectations. Your fears. Your identity. And the tighter you hold, the more life resists. That's the tragedy. But also the liberation, because the moment you stop clenching, the moment you dare to release, everything shifts. Let go of trying to predict the outcome. Let go of needing others to validate your worth. Let go of the fantasy that you are or ever were in control. That's not surrender in defeat. That's surrender in trust. Alan Watts draws from the ancient Taoist concept of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. It's not inaction. It's wise action. Intuitive. Natural. Like how a skilled archer releases the bowstring. Like a jazz musician improvising. Or a dancer moving not from thought, but from feeling. This isn't laziness. It's mastery. Letting go doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you stop forcing outcomes. You act. You move. You love. And then, you let the results unfold. You trust the process more than the plan. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because so much of life has taught you otherwise. You've been trained to believe that control equals safety, that you have to earn love, that you have to secure happiness like a possession, or it will vanish. But Watts reminds us you are not a separate self clawing your way through a hostile universe. You are the universe, expressing itself in human form. Your heartbeat isn't controlled by will. You don't think your way into breathing. The sun rises, the tides turn, the flowers bloom without needing your permission. And still, life supports you. Every moment, even when it doesn't look like it. Even when it breaks your heart. Even when nothing goes as planned. Because maybe that's where the real gifts are hidden, in what arrives when you stop chasing. Watts tells the story of a gardener. Obsessive, precise, trying to control every detail of his garden. He plants, he prunes, he corrects. And the more he tries, the more lifeless the garden becomes. Until one day, he stops. He lets it be. He allows it to grow wild, messy, natural. And that's when it blooms, full of surprise, color, chaos, beauty. Because life doesn't respond to control, it responds to freedom. Letting go isn't abandonment. It's co-creation. It's letting life meet you. And that kind of surrender doesn't start with the big things. It starts small. Getting cut off in traffic and choosing not to escalate. Hearing criticism and choosing not to defend. Planning something and allowing room for change. It's in the breath you take before reacting. The silence you hold before judging. The moment you say, maybe I don't need to fix this right now. Watts calls it relaxed confidence. A kind of inner poise that doesn't flinch when plans fall apart. Because you're no longer depending on the plan. You're anchored in something deeper than knowing that life, in its mysterious intelligence, is working through you, not against you. And yes, it's vulnerable. To let go is to risk. To say, I trust what I can't yet see. But in that risk is freedom. In that surrender is abundance. Because when your hands are clenched, you can't receive. But when you open them, Life pours in. That's the irony, the cosmic joke. You spend so much time fearing what might be lost if you let go. But what if the things you're gripping are the very things blocking the miracles? What if control isn't keeping you safe, it's keeping you small? What if certainty isn't comfort, it's a cage? The people who glow with ease, the ones who seem to float through chaos with grace, they're not lucky. They've learned the art of release. They've practiced letting go not just once, but daily. In thoughts, in fears, in expectations. And in doing so, they've discovered a deeper current beneath the surface of things. A rhythm, a flow. Watts would say it's the Tao, the way of things. You don't have to understand it. You just have to feel it. It's what carries the wave to shore. It's what breathes through you as you read these words. It's what turns a moment of heartbreak into a doorway for transformation. And the more you let go, the more you start to notice it. Synchronicities, serendipities, beauty in places you'd never expect. Not because you controlled the outcome, but because you created space. Letting go isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of receiving without chasing, of moving without rushing, of loving without fearing loss, of creating without clinging to results. And in that space, the magic returns. Life stops being a fight. It becomes a dance. You stop surviving. You start being. That's the invitation Alan Watts leaves you with: not to abandon your dreams, but to hold them lightly. To plant seeds and let them grow in their own time. To act with integrity but release attachment to what comes next. Because you are not here to grip life into submission. You are here to participate in its unfolding. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is to let go of the rope you've been clinging to and trust that the current knows the way home. Let go, and watch what flows in. Let's get honest. Let's drop the pretense that control was ever anything more than a comforting illusion. The checklist, the timeline, the perfect plan. How often did they really work the way you expected? Rarely, if ever. And yet, we cling to them, as if certainty is oxygen, as if without it, we'll float into some abyss of chaos. But Alan Watts invites us to challenge that belief, to ask, what if chaos isn't the enemy? What if uncertainty is freedom in disguise? That thought can terrify you. It rattles the mind, because the ego hates the unknown. It wants guarantees, proof, security. It wants to know how things will unfold before it agrees to relax. But life has never made those kinds of promises. It's unpredictable, wild, untamed, and yet it's also intelligent, deeply, profoundly intelligent. The same intelligence that spins galaxies, that orchestrates ecosystems, that turns cells into consciousness, is moving through you right now. And if you can trust that intelligence when it builds a tree, or heals a wound, or makes a baby's heart beat in the womb, then why not trust it with your life? That's the essence of letting go. Not apathy, not passivity. Trust, and not blind trust either. Felt trust. Trust that's earned by observing, by looking around and realizing that the sky hasn't fallen yet. That even after your worst days, you're still here, breathing, healing, changing. There's a quiet wisdom in letting go of the tightrope and learning to walk the ground beneath your feet instead. Because here's what you start to see. The moment you loosen your grip, something remarkable happens. Space opens up. Not just physical space, but mental space, emotional space, spiritual space. The kind of space where creativity lives, where new possibilities rise, where joy tiptoes back in like a child who was too afraid to enter the room while you were busy clenching your fists. And suddenly, you're no longer managing life. You're experiencing it. You stop micromanaging your healing. You stop scripting your relationships. You stop bracing for pain and start feeling again. That doesn't mean you become reckless. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you shift your posture from control to cooperation, from fear to flow. Alan Watts often spoke of music to explain this. He said, life is not a journey with a destination. We thought of life by analogy with a journey. With the pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, the thing was to get to that end, success or whatever it is. But we missed the point the whole way along. And then he smiles and says, life is more like music than a journey. You don't play music to get to the end. You play it to enjoy the dance. Let that sink in. You weren't meant to arrive. You were meant to dance. But you can't dance if you're trying to control every step. You can't feel the rhythm if you're counting the beats and watching your feet. The music of life requires you to surrender, to trust the melody, to let it move you. And when you do, when you finally stop forcing things, you find out something wild. Life is better at this than you are. It's more creative, more generous, more surprising. That job you wanted so badly, the one you didn't get, it made space for something 10 times better. That person you chased, clung to, worried over, When you let them go, someone more aligned entered your world effortlessly. That moment you thought was the end. It was actually the beginning. This is what Watts points to again and again. That letting go doesn't take from you, it clears the path for what was always meant to arrive. He tells us, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. What a radical image. Because floating isn't lazy, floating is a form of wisdom. A recognition that the water wants to hold you up, if you'll stop fighting it. But letting go isn't a single decision. It's a practice, a discipline. It happens in small, subtle choices. It happens when you stop refreshing your inbox for that one reply. When you let your phone stay silent for a few hours. When you take a deep breath instead of defending your point. When you say, I don't know how, but I trust that this will unfold in time. It happens when you choose stillness over strategy. When you choose presence over productivity. When you choose to be instead of always doing. And gradually, you realize you're not as scared anymore. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to cling. You can trust. You can move forward without the weight. Letting go becomes a habit, a way of being. You begin to see that not every emotion needs to be held. Not every plan needs to be executed. Not every fear needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be witnessed. And then, released. And here's what's wild. Life responds to that release. The moment you stop grasping, life starts giving. You let go of needing to be loved a certain way and real love shows up. You let go of how your healing should look and healing begins. You let go of needing everything to make sense and suddenly, peace enters. Because that's how energy works. When you cling, you close. When you release, you open. And life can only flow where there's space to enter. So what do you need to let go of? The version of yourself you're afraid to outgrow. The relationship that feels safe but stifling. The timeline you created years ago that no longer fits the person you're becoming. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally trust. It means you've decided to stop gripping the steering wheel in a storm and let life drive for a while. Watts never preached from a pedestal. He wasn't telling you to renounce everything and live on a mountaintop. He was saying, you're already part of the universe. Stop acting like you're not. You are not lost. You are being carried. Even in this moment, as you read this, something deeper is unfolding within you. Maybe you felt the quiet tension you've been holding, the resistance, the tightness in the chest. That's your signal. To soften, to release, to exhale. Because life doesn't need your grip, it needs your presence. It needs you awake, receptive, curious, ready to be surprised. And when you live from that place, from the space of surrendered openness, you start to see everything differently. Traffic becomes silence. Delays become rest. Endings become openings. You don't just survive change, you welcome it. You don't fear loss, you understand it as space making. You stop asking, what if this all goes wrong? And start wondering, what if this goes better than I imagined? Letting go becomes the language of abundance. Because now you're no longer in scarcity. You're no longer trying to prove, possess, or protect. You're available. And when you're available, life pours in. Not always in the ways you expected, but always in the ways you needed. This is what Alan Watts wanted us to remember. That the universe isn't asking you to perform. It's inviting you to dance. And the rhythm, it's already inside you. All you have to do is let go of the noise long enough to hear it. Let go. And let life show you what it's been holding for you all along. So, how do you do it? How do you actually let go? Not just say it. Not just nod in agreement while reading a quote or listening to a talk. Not just understand the theory, but live it day to day, moment to moment, when the stakes are high and your old habits are screaming at you to take control again. Letting go isn't something you master in a weekend retreat or capture in a journal entry. It's not a light switch. It's a practice. A returning, over and over again. And it begins, always, with awareness. That moment when you catch yourself clenching mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Maybe you're waiting for a text reply. Maybe you're fixated on a plan going exactly your way. Maybe you're replaying a conversation that already happened, rewriting it in your mind like it somehow changed the past. That's your window. That's when the work begins. Pause. Breathe. Drop into the body. Notice the tension, the tightness, the speed of your thoughts. Then ask yourself gently, what am I trying to control right now? More often than not, it's something you never had control over in the first place. The reaction of someone else, the timing of an opportunity, the way people see you, the outcome of something still unfolding. You've wrapped yourself around these things like armor, but armor is heavy. And at some point, you have to ask, is it protecting me, or is it keeping me from moving forward? Watts spoke of this often. He used the metaphor of a raft. When you cross a river, you use the raft to get to the other side. But once you're there, you don't carry the raft on your back for the rest of the journey. You leave it behind. You let it go. Same goes for your coping mechanisms. The beliefs that once kept you safe. The rigid rules that helped you navigate uncertainty. They served you once, but now they're just extra weight. So, you practice dropping the raft. And sometimes, letting go isn't even about something tangible. It's about loosening your grip on how you think life should look. You thought you'd be married by now. You thought your career would be more impressive. You thought you'd have it figured out. But those timelines, those expectations, you didn't create them from truth. You inherited them from family, society, fear. Letting go means giving yourself permission to reimagine the story. To say, maybe I'm not late. Maybe I'm right on time. Maybe this isn't a detour, it's the path. And in that mental unclenching, you open the door for something radical. Peace. Not the kind of peace that's passive or indifferent, but the kind of peace that comes from alignment, from no longer arguing with what is, from choosing trust instead of tension. You're not supposed to be perfect at this. You're just supposed to notice, and then choose differently, even if it's just for one breath, one moment of stillness, one prayer of surrender whispered into the silence. Because every time you let go even a little, you reclaim a piece of your energy, your power, your presence, and slowly, over time, the shift becomes real. You start to notice you're not panicking like you used to. You're not obsessing over outcomes. You're not carrying everyone else's emotions on your back like a mule. You're lighter, freer. You're more grounded in the now. And this is where life gets delicious. This is where synchronicities start to bloom, where things begin to show up not because you chased them down, but because you made space for them. When you stop gripping the door, the one that's truly meant for you can open. But only then, because life responds to openness, to availability, to presence, not to perfection, not to performance. This is why letting go isn't weak. It's the strongest thing you can do.